You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, welcome back to another episode of the Maple Footy Podcast. And, you know, the mapliest, the footiest, the podcastiest Maple Footy podcast out there. And it was a big weekend in both the prem and for our Canadian boys. So first off, let's kind of start off with our Canadian boys as we always do, kicking off with our little Maple start that we do. And throughout the week, Canada Soccer was naming the players of the year. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our men and women who won both young and then players of the year. So first, starting with our young players of the year, on the women's side, it was Olivia Smith, who has started out life very nicely for Liverpool's women's team, and she is doing real well. I mean, I would say this was definitely well earned. She started out life in Liverpool real well, I think, and has continued to kind of show her potential, which is why she kind of gets that young player nod, and it's definitely well earned. So a big congratulations from the Maple Footy fam down to Olivia Smith all the way in Liverpool, England. And for the men's, of course, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the best Saliba in world football, Nathan Saliba. Definitely enjoyed a bit of a breakout year, I would say, for Montreal. While Montreal kind of didn't have the greatest of years, they kind of ended it positively getting into playoffs and then, of course, sadly getting dumped out pretty quickly. But regardless, they kind of had a very up and down year. I think we can all agree on that. But a big bright spot in that was definitely Nathan Saliba. Captained them on a couple of occasions, shows how highly the club, I would say, thinks of him as both a player and a leader, and even got his first couple, or I think he only got one cap for Canada this year. He might have gotten two, but regardless, got his definitely his first Canada cap this year, and it was definitely well earned. I mean, this is what we love to see for both Olivia Smith and Nathan Saliba. We love to see these players getting the acknowledgement, getting the recognition they deserve, getting the game time for their clubs, whether it's at Liverpool or at Montreal, and yeah, just kind of absolutely smashing it. So hopefully, Olivia Smith's season is obviously still ongoing, so hopefully she continues to do great, and hopefully Nathan Saliba comes back next season and has an even better season. So a big congrats to both of them. And then our players of the year, these were my two picks as well, so I was very happy to see them both get their acknowledgement. First, for the women's, Vanessa Gill. I mean, yeah. I mean, her Olympics run alone was, I think, enough to kind of get that award. She was amazing for us at the Olympics and then has continued that with club. So she's, I mean, no complaints for me on that one. And then, of course, on the men's side, it was Jonathan David, rightfully so. I would say I think he was our most influential men's player, both for club and country. He had a great calendar year for, like I said, Lille. Since January, he kind of hasn't stopped scoring. And then I thought he was great for us at the not the Gold Cup, the Copa America was great for us in some of our internationals at the end of the year. And yeah, I mean, once again, no complaints here for both of them. Hopefully their seasons continue to be great. Of course, both of them actually playing in France, Vanessa Gill with Lyon, and then, of course, Jonathan David, famously with Lille. Sticking with Jonathan David and French football, Jonathan David was named the Ligue 1 Player of the Month, his first time ever, and kind of surprising, if I'm being honest. Not that he won this month, the fact that it's only this time, like this is the first time he's won it. But yeah, big congrats to Jonathan David, who's definitely enjoyed quite the year, I would say. And January is right around the corner, which means he will be able to sign anywhere a pre-contract for free. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that. My prediction is Inter Milan. I don't know why, just a lot of rumors around there, and I feel like Tajon Buchanan could be maybe, being like, hey man, why not? Let's round up for club and country. So another great segue on my part. Let's talk about Tajon Buchanan, who started his first ever game for Inter Milan, a 2-0 win in the Supercopa the Italian version of essentially the FA Cup, or Carabao Cup, I would say, actually. Yeah, definitely a long time coming, I would say. He's looked real positive anytime he's stepped on the pitch for Inter Milan. Obviously had that big injury scare middle of the year and is kind of just starting to come back now. I think well earned. He looked good, I would say. And currently Inter Milan, as I'm recording this, are playing Como. Tage did start on the bench, so hopefully he gets on in that game as well. But yeah, hopefully this is the first start of many to come for Buchanan. I mean, we all know how much I love him, so I just hope it's the first of many more to come. Kind of moving back into France, some big news coming out of there as Ismail Kone could be leaving Marseille on a loan. Has not really found it easy in Marseille, whether it's injuries, whether it's manager just not trusting him, but both. He hasn't had the game time that we would have wanted to see for our young Canadian midfielder. Just not there for him at the moment. So potentially loan move. Links have been Lazio in Italy, so we'll kind of see how that plays out. I just want him to play, honestly. He's a great player, a great young player. He needs to play. He needs to develop his game, and he needs to play. Playing at a young age, I think, is super important for these guys. He's only 22, so playing at a top level consistently is what he needs. He did get on for Marseille in their, essentially, FA Cup over the weekend. Him and Derek Cornelius both started on the bench. They both did get minutes. Cornelius played around about a half an hour. Kone played about 15 minutes, give or take, on both of those. But yeah, good to see them both getting back into the lineups-ish, getting off the bench at least. Cornelius coming back from his own injury. So hopefully both of them find playing time, whether it is at Marseille, in this case for Kone, if it is at Marseille, or if it is on loan. Whereas Derek Cornelius, I do feel like he will get back in, knocking on wood. The manager hasn't really, come out to the press and said anything about him, knocking on wood again. So we'll see what happens. But sticking in France with Theo Bair, he started in a loss for Auxerre. No goals to report on, and I would like to see Theo Bair starting a lot more for Auxerre, just because he is a player that if you give him a chance, I think he's going to take it. He hasn't had many this season. We're in December. He's got one league goal, a couple of starts to his name, not a whole ton. I really want him to succeed, so please let him start at Auxerre. If not, I think we could be seeing him on the move. You never know. Sticking with our Canadian strikers, though, Kyle Larin scored the decisive penalty for Mallorca against Getafe in Ligue. I was supposed to call it Ligue 1 and La Liga. Too many leagues, guys. Too many leagues. I'm getting them all confused. It was La Liga in Spain. Taking a page out of Jonathan David's book, converting a penalty very calmly, very coolly, very nicely done. That's 4 in 5 for him. So he's really finding his goal scoring form, which we've been clamoring for. Kyle Larin needed these goals, and he's getting these goals. I think his overall game this year has been good. The goals kind of dried up during this year, so it's good to see him finishing strong. Hopefully he can carry that going into 2025. And finally, just a little nod to a former TFC boy, and of course has been capped by the Canadian men's national team. Lucas McNaughton is leaving Shaffelburg and Nashville. He's going out to DC United. So we wish him all the best here at the Maple Footy Podcast. I actually am a pretty big fan of Lucas McNaughton. He's a great player that came from the CPL and has now gone to the MLS, has played now successfully with TFC Nashville, and hopefully he gets some game time at DC United, and hopefully it's just a good season for him. Our Canadian boys and girls, obviously, are doing very well. And finally, very quickly, Alphonso Davies grabbed a goal and an assist for Bayern Munich. I know a couple weeks ago I had said that there were scares that he might be done for the calendar year. Evidently not. Injury not as bad as they thought it was, or maybe as speculated, and he came into the lineup here and got a goal and an assist, a goal very reminiscent of the 2022 World Cup goal that he did score. But with that being said, that wraps up our Maple start. Let's get into the Prem action. So yeah, kind of a lengthy one there, just A lot to talk about for Canadian football. I'm sure there's probably even stuff I did miss and didn't talk about. But yeah, it was a bit lengthy, so I do apologize for that if you were here for the Prem stuff. But don't worry, we are getting into the Prem stuff now. As you know, we start with match of the weekend, then biggest winners of the weekend, biggest underperformers, best performance, moments of the weekend, relegation zone, European places, and of course, title race. So let's get into match of the weekend. Obviously, it's Everton-Chelsea. No, it's not at all. Not a good game. That was not a good game. Match of the weekend for me, I think, has got to be that Liverpool-Tottenham game. Seldom do you see a 6-3. The only other one that comes to mind actually is Chelsea-Everton back in, what was that, 2014, I think? So yeah, very seldom do you see this. I thought it was a very good game for a neutral, I would say. If you're a Tottenham fan, I'm sorry. It definitely wasn't a good game for you, but this was one of those games where I've been kind of critical of Liverpool, kind of not looking like champions, but getting the champion-esque results of they weren't playing greatly, but still grinded out a result. This was one of those games where I actually felt like they played like champions for most of it. They did shut off at a point, I would say, for about that 15-minute spell where Spurs kind of teased a little comeback where Kulusevski and then, of course, Solanke got their goals. But outside of that, I thought it was men against boys, really, for about 90% of this game. Liverpool was just, they were in control from the get-go and then really never let it go. It was 6-3, and it honestly probably could have been teasing double digits, if we're being honest, for Liverpool, of course. Salah hits the bar, a couple missed opportunities here and there, and that just kind of shows how just on top of it Liverpool were, that you're going, yeah, they got 6, and they probably could have gotten more. I mean, it starts out with a great ball by Alexander-Arnold, and I've said before, I'll say it again, probably the best distribution in the league. The way he just passes the ball and just finds his man, it feels like almost every time. And when it doesn't usually feel like it's his fault. It usually feels like maybe someone wasn't where they were supposed to be. Obviously, he has the odd misplaced pass here and there, but this one was not misplaced at all. I think I could have scored this with how perfectly that was placed. Obviously kidding. I definitely couldn't have. But genuinely, it was a great pass. Just beautiful. Finds Luis Diaz. Alexander-Arnold gets the praise for this one, but I thought it was a very tidy finish from Luis Diaz. Just a nice little header, kind of puts it back to where it came from, kind of what you're taught when you're younger. And from there, you were thinking, okay, maybe we got a back and forth game on our hands. No. So quickly then, about 10, 13 minutes later, Alexis McAllister, Spurs defense looks an utter shambles, as they did all game. And I do have stuff to say about that, because they were blaming injuries, right, to Van de Ven and Christian Romero. That is Ange's fault, in my opinion. Obviously, injuries happen, right? But both these guys, as I said back a couple weeks ago, were coming back from injuries, and they were quickly rushed in for the Chelsea game. Then both of them come off injured in that game. Coming off of injuries, you did it to yourself. You did it to yourself. Obviously, I hope both of the players are okay and they come back very soon, because no one wants to be injured. But because the injury card was kind of being pulled a little bit here when I was listening to the commentary while watching the game. They were kind of talking about the Spurs injuries. And I was like, yes, injuries suck. They do happen. Of course, we all know that. I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying it's fake. Not at all. But we also have to remember, these guys were rushed back for a game. It's kind of the manager's doing, That's my opinion on it. Obviously, we don't know all the behind the scenes details, but yeah, I'm just not having the Spurs defense was in shambles because, they're missing their two biggest defenders, really. I'm not having it. The defense didn't look good at all this game, and I think that Alexis McAllister goal kind of sums it up the best. The Spurs guys just kind of jumping in the air aimlessly for a ball. I think it deflects off of them as well, and then McAllister's just the quickest to react, heads the ball in 2-0. James Maddison does get one right before half, and then you're thinking, okay, 2-1, Spurs can maybe come out. No. Once again, no. Just Dominic Szoboszlai right before half, scores to make it 3-1 going into the half. Then Salah gets a couple after the break. This is kind of when Liverpool kind of turned off around the 70th minute. They kind of turned off here. I mean, they were, at this point, 5-1 up. Spurs end up getting 2. Dominic Solanke actually having a good couple minutes here. He didn't have a whole ton to do on the afternoon, but at least when he did, he stepped up, gets an assist on the Kulusevski goal, then gets a goal. The goal, by the way, was very nicely taken. Both of them, actually. The Kulusevski goal was quite nice, as was the Solanke goal. And then Luis Diaz then quickly puts the game to bed, making it 6-3 just 2 minutes after Solanke finds the back of the net. It was a very good game for the neutral. I would say very exciting. A lot of goals, obviously. And yeah, I think Spurs' woes kind of continue, whereas Liverpool, I think if they can build on a performance like this, obviously taking out about that 10 minutes where they did just kind of turn off, I could see them realistically really piling up the points and really separating themselves between second and third place, as they already kind of have 4 points up on Chelsea with a game in hand. But I think if they kind of keep playing this way, I think that 4 points could turn into a lot more. That's just my opinion. But, we'll see what happens after that. Another game, I would say, which was well worth the watch, I think has to be Aston Villa and Man City, just because of how good Aston Villa were. Like, they were top class on the day. And it was 2-1. I think 2-1 does actually flatter City a little bit, in my opinion. In my humble opinion, I think 2-1 flatters Manchester City because Aston Villa was dominant. I thought from goalkeeper all the way to striker, they looked very good. Unlucky a couple of times as well that they didn't find the back of the net. On a few other occasions, could have been a little bit more. And then, of course, City kind of gets a consolation goal at the end. But really, just proper play from Aston Villa. Morgan Rogers, this won't be the last time we talk about him this episode, by the way. Morgan Rogers with one of the performances of the season. Genuinely, he was phenomenal. And just, I love seeing a team right now like Aston Villa. I know they have a great history behind them, but as of late, in the last decade or so, obviously that history has been a far cry from what it once was. But I love to see them coming back here and being in Champions League right now, taking it to the big boys, climbing up the table. I just love to see it. So yeah, big game from Aston Villa. I thought it was a proper performance, a team performance from them. And Manchester City's woes continue. Once again, won't be the last time we talk about Manchester City this episode. But let's move into the biggest winners of the weekend. We're going to stick on the topic of Liverpool as we were just talking about them. I'll kind of keep it brief just because I feel like I talk about them as winners of the weekend almost every single weekend. So we'll kind of keep it a little bit brief here. But, I mean, hard to not say them. They go to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They win 6-3, extend the lead at the top of the table, taking advantage of Chelsea dropping points on the weekend. And they capitalize. They get 6 goals. Once again, could have been even more. And yeah, just kind of hard to fault you if you're at the top of the league, So yeah, well, I'll kind of leave it at that just because, like I said, I kind of put them in this category every weekend. So I'll kind of move on from them this weekend. So we'll kind of move into Wolves getting a big 3-0 win over relegation rivals under new manager Victor Pereira. So big moment for Wolves, I think. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'll say it until the cows come home or until the season's done. Wolves are not going down. They are not going down. I have full faith in this. They're not going down. I'm telling you, it's not happening. 3-0 over relegation rivals Leicester. This now brings Wolves. They are still in the relegation zone, but they're 2 points off of Leicester and 4 points off of Palace in those safety kind of spots at the moment, 17 and 16 respectively. I just think this is big for Wolves. They kind of failed to capitalize last time they won big. I would say they won against Fulham back in November. And then they lost 4 in a row, and pretty badly. So 4-2 against Bournemouth, 4-0 against Everton, 2-1 against West Ham, and then 2-1 against Ipswich. So here they have that big 3-0 win. They're coming up against a shaky Manchester United next. So, I mean, I do think it will take a lot for Wolves to beat them, but I think it could happen. And then they also have a shaky Tottenham after that. So really, I honestly think that these teams are here for the picking at the moment for Wolves. And like I said, I just think they're going to stay up. I really do. Perhaps the managerial change is what they needed. I'm not advocating someone loses their job, of course. But obviously, we've seen it in the Prem. We've seen it in all leagues, actually, where managerial change comes in, new manager bounce, potentially kind of helps them out. I do think Gary O'Neill got the short end of the stick, but sometimes the new manager can do the team some good. And I mean, Cunha, of course, kind of picking up where he left off. He gets a goal here, and the game was done before halftime. So they kind of saw it out, which has been an issue for Wolves this season. They haven't been able to see these games out when they kind of say are leading or at least tying a game. They don't see it out. They saw this one out. They saw it out very well. And yeah, over a relegation rival, I think that's massive for them. Another big winner of the weekend is Nottingham Forest, who stick in 4th place now, and they're 4th by 3 points. Who would have thought at any point in this season that Forest would have been in the top 4? Never mind now for a couple consecutive weeks. So it's great to see, kind of like Aston Villa, haven't had the best of times in recent years after having a great history in that club. So it's great to kind of see them kind of like, don't want to say getting back there because it's still early days in both projects, but at least showing signs that like they could be European contenders. And I think that's absolutely massive. It's great for the league too, I think, in my opinion, having different teams up there. And it's just nice, It's just really nice. And then my final winner of the weekend, it does kind of kill me, but I do have to give credit where it's due. Arsenal 5-1 over Crystal Palace. Arsenal came out, I think they looked quite good this game. Not playing Declan Rice, I think, for most of the game at least, was actually a good call by Arteta. I think he kind of slows the quick pace of that Arsenal team when he's on the ball. So kind of taking him out of that midfield, I think kind of did them some good. I don't think you can take him out every single game because I do think that he does have something to offer. I'm not his biggest fan, but he does still have something to offer. Just in this game, I think it kind of worked. Crystal Palace, all due respect, one of the weaker sides this season. He was taken out, and then it kind of allows the midfield to kind of be more free-flowing. Now, against the top sides, I think you have to put Declan Rice in. He's a good shield for that back four. But, like I said, against kind of lesser opposition, once again, all due respect, I think it kind of works, and it did work here, obviously. 5-1. The only blow here, I would say, is Bukayo Saka coming off hurt. Rumors that he could be out for a couple weeks. Definitely not good for the Arsenal side. I think Saka's had quite a good year. Probably been one of their best players, in my opinion. So to kind of potentially lose him, I think could be a big blow. Hopefully for his sake and for Arsenal's sake, it's nothing too serious and could just be precautionary. But like I said, the rumors are saying this, so we'll kind of have to wait and see until next game, of course, what the truth is behind Saka's injury. So we'll kind of just wait and see there. But yeah, Arsenal definitely do deserve to be named as a winner of the weekend. Moving into, of course, underwhelmers of the weekend now. Starting things off, of course, with my team, Chelsea. I put Arsenal in the underwhelmers last time out for the exact same reason, 0-0 to Everton. Everton did look pretty good defensively, but I do think Chelsea does have enough to break them down, and they just didn't on the day. They had their chances. Nicholas Jackson had a couple. Enzo Fernandez had a couple, and it's just a shame because, when you're in a title race or when you're not in a title race, depending on what Chelsea players and what Chelsea fans you ask, if they are or if they aren't, you need these wins. You got to beat a team like Everton. It's going to be difficult. Chelsea has an abysmal record at Goodison over the last decade. I think at this point, it's got to be pushing a decade. It feels like they haven't won there in years. And they definitely haven't. But yeah, no, it's a game where I think you got to win. and they just don't. I mean, a draw isn't the worst thing in the world, as I said for Arsenal last weekend. It's not the worst thing in the world, but you definitely expect a little bit more from a side with Chelsea's quality, especially in attack. It's a missed opportunity, I would say. Now Liverpool pulls 4 points ahead of you, game in hand. Obviously still a lot of time in the season, but yeah, definitely not ideal, I would say. Moving into, any guesses here? It's Manchester City. Once it kind of like Liverpool, it feels like I've said Manchester City now for the last little bit. It's the same reasons they're not winning. They're not winning. They've fallen now out the top 5. I believe they're sitting in 6th or 7th now. Yeah, they're sitting in 7th. Sorry, just checking the table. They are sitting in 7th, so that's not good when you're the defending champs and have been for the last, how many did they win in a row? 4 in a row, I think. So when you've been the defending champs and you're 4-time champs in a row, you need to do better, I think, and Phil Foden gets a consolation goal. Nothing has been said about the fact that Phil Foden was the player of the year last year and has been terrible this year. Just kind of strange to me, because I feel like if it was other players, maybe that would be a different narrative. But I guess Manchester City just doesn't get that scrutiny. I don't know. It's just kind of strange to me. This is his first goal. We're 16 games in. He's gotten his first goal after he was player of the year last year. I don't know. It's just very strange to me that he's not getting any real big criticism. I don't know. It's just very strange to me. The whole Manchester City situation is rather strange to me. I don't think many people predicted this, but hey, Michael Owen did. I was sent a tweet the other day of him predicting Manchester City to be lucky to make top 4, and he's looking like a genius right now. So shout out Michael Owen, I suppose. But yeah, kind of moving away from Manchester City, we're kind of going to move into the other side of Manchester. Once again, going to keep it a little bit brief just because I've mentioned them so many times in underperformers. It's Manchester United 3-0 to Bournemouth. By the way, I should add Bournemouth probably into the winners of the weekend. I kind of totally forgot to, so we're going to act like I added Bournemouth into winners of the weekend, guys, so just act like I did that. Yeah, Manchester United, up and down since Amorim came in. I don't think that's, for most people, I don't think that's unexpected. I know there's probably many people that maybe thought it would be a lot better under Amorim. It hasn't been, and once I don't think it's his fault. He's inheriting a not great squad. I just look at that squad and kind of feel rather uninspired, and it's not really a shocker to see them still struggling. This is now going to be their first time since, I believe, the 89-90 season where they haven't been in the top 10 on Christmas Day. They're sitting in 13th, guys. That's terrible. That's awful. You expect a little bit more, no? It's just real bad for Manchester United. I think Amorim needs to get into the transfer market, and it's going to be many transfer markets that they're going to need. This isn't like a one window fix. They need many players, and they need to offload a lot of players too. It's a bit of a mess for Manchester United right now, and 3-0 to Bournemouth at home, Old Trafford, I think that kind of sums it up, if you ask me. Same can be said for Tottenham as an underwhelmer. I've said them a good few times now. I'm going to leave it at that, honestly. I think you could add Tottenham in here. Just haven't been good, and just not good. Not good. A lot of issues with these 3 clubs I mentioned, Manchester City, United, and Tottenham. I have more faith in some than I do others to turn it around. I have skeptical faith in some that I do in others to turn around, and I have no faith in some than I do others to turn this around. You can match up which ones I think are which one I'm skeptical about, which one I have no faith in, and which one I do have a little bit of faith in to turn around. You can kind of match those up to the 3 clubs that I just predicted there. But finally, I think we have to put Leicester in underwhelmers of the weekend. I think I'm Leicester's number 1 op this season. They don't look good. They really don't look good. I think they're kind of lucky that there's teams like Southampton in the league kind of taking up that relegation spot there, because at least Ipswich and Wolves are showing fight to not get relegated. So, if you took Southampton out of this, I think Leicester would be in the bottom 3 right now. they just don't look great. And like I said, for Wolves, a big 3-0 loss to Wolves. For Leicester, it's not good. That's a relegation rival. Those are the games as a relegation team you want to win. You don't. So especially at home, I think you have that home field advantage. But yeah, just kind of like with Manchester in a little bit of a different way, this Leicester team just looks so uninspiring. I mean, I love Jamie Vardy. Like, I absolutely adore him. But it's 2024 and we're still relying on Jamie Vardy for anything from this team. That's not good. He's pushing 40 at this point. He's had a great career, of course, and this, I think it's more indicative of Leicester's situation than it is me criticizing someone like Jamie Vardy. Just the fact that Jamie Vardy's your main man still, it's concerning to me. And I just really don't see them staying up. I really don't. But hey, who knows? Maybe they'll shock us all. But let's kind of move into best performance. There is one performance, and this is I think this is the first time I'm ever going to mention just one performance. It's Morgan Rogers. He was unreal against Manchester City. Genuinely one of the performances of the season. I don't think I've done just a singular performance, but his performance was so good, it just warranted just having its own spotlight. He was unreal. He ran the show against Manchester City. Now, all of Aston Villa was great, but Morgan Rogers was just a cut above the rest, whether it was on his own team or any team in the Prem this season. He was so positive going forward, did the bits defensively too as well on a number of occasions, but leaves the game with a goal and an assist, of course, but take those out of it. It is such an easy on the eye performance. This is what the game is missing. Just that player that is just so much fun to watch, and he's been one of the performers of the year, in my opinion. He's had a phenomenal year, and he does this against his former club too. So you gotta feel like that felt good. I think that had to have felt good for him. He played this game with a chip on his shoulder, I think, and my goodness, was it well worth it? Because oh my word, what a performance! The way he just operated in the tight pockets of space, the way he launched counterattacks, his distribution was great, always an outlet, and just such top class. He just felt like he was everywhere he needed to be on the day. It was so refreshing to see a performance like this, because these performances feel like they're so few and far between these days, because everybody watches the game through stats and who scored most, who got the most headers, all that stuff. And yes, stats are important, of course they are, but sometimes you just gotta watch the game with your eyes. And I know he leaves the game with some very nice stats, of course, but just watch the performance. So easy on the eye. Oh my goodness. I can't believe that City let a guy like him, Cole Palmer, Romeo Lavia, Liam Delap, Jadon Sancho, just so many players of such top quality go, especially now looking at City. They're entering that old age kind of range, whereas these young players could have infused so much life into them. But I'm so glad that these guys bound themselves and left and are now kind of reaping the rewards of that, like a Morgan Rogers, who is 100,000% my performance of the weekend. If you haven't, either watch the game or find a compilation of the performance on whether it's YouTube, Twitter, whatever. You won't regret it. It was a phenomenal performance. Absolutely one of my favorites of the season. So let's move into moment of the weekend, and we're going to stick with the Morgan Rogers love fest, because his goal to me was a moment of the weekend, because it just, one, it capped off an unreal performance, and two, just the way he took that goal, just the slight touch to take it away, move it onto his bot, and then just firing it into the bottom corner. It was superb. So that has to be a moment of the weekend. Now we're kind of going to move away from Morgan Rogers, of course. We're going to move into Newcastle, who I haven't mentioned this episode, but they did have a very good weekend. It's got to be Alexander Isak's just hat trick as a whole. I know that's kind of technically 3 moments, but his hat trick as a whole gets in here because he's had a very good season and has been one of the top strikers in the league this year, I would say. Kind of caps that off with a hat trick here. started out strong, of course, getting one literally less than a minute into the match. I think I saw the stat that was the second quickest goal of the season in the Prem so far. I could be wrong there, but it would be up there for sure if it was less than a minute in, so it's up there if it's not number 2 or number 1. Then he gets one right before halftime, then he gets one right after halftime. It just kind of shows the quality that he's got in those boots of his, and yeah, just a top performance from him getting that hat trick. Another moment of the weekend, I would say, is just Bournemouth beating Manchester United 3-0 at Old Trafford. That's 2 years now in a row that they have done that. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. United, I don't think many people would have predicted that come, say, even like last year before Bournemouth did it at Old Trafford the first time. But in terms of Areola, their manager, of course, he has now beaten Mikel Arteta, Pep Guardiola, Ange Postecoglou, and Ruben Amorim this season. That's kind of crazy, and he's got Bournemouth now in 5th. What a season he's having. He had a great season with them last year. Lost arguably their best player in the transfer window over the summer in Dominic Solanke, and haven't missed a beat, and you could say have been even better. What a performance, what a moment, I would say, for them this weekend, kind of reaping their rewards. Currently in 5th after 16 or 17 match days now. I can't remember off the top of my head what we're on. We're on the match day 17. That's what we're on, guys. Checked it. So just top class from him and Bournemouth as a whole. Who would have thought? I remember when, like 2 years ago, or I think it's 2 years ago now, watching them play a couple of games. One of them was, of course, against Chelsea, and they looked just awful. Like they were a team that was going to go down and just kind of be in the championship, maybe bounce back up and forth every now and then. But it hasn't been the case since then. They've turned it around. They've looked phenomenal, and like I said, currently in 5th. So right now, just what's not to be happy about if you're a Bournemouth fan right now. So yeah, just top class from them, I would say. Let us move into the relegation zone now. And I mean, Southampton, they're still there. They are still there, and they will be there for the next foreseeable future, I would say. I mean, they didn't lose this week, at least. They got their 3rd draw of the season against Fulham, a 0-0. I think you would have expected a little bit better from Fulham, I would say. But, yeah, no, I mean, they at least didn't lose this weekend, but they sit on 6 points after 17 match days, and, yeah, nothing left to say about Southampton at this point. I feel for the supporters, as I say, I think every week they deserve better than this. But yeah, just they're still down there. Ipswich did not have a great week, of course, sitting in 19th here. Still will mention they are still only 2 points off of safety, though. So it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, it's not a great weekend, of course, but they're not like dead and buried, I would say. They're showing some fight here. Of course, they do lose 4-0 to Newcastle. Not good. Like, you can't spin that. Not good. But if you want to look at a positive, I would say only 2 points off the safety right now. So, at least they're showing fight. Whether they stay up or go down, they're at least still kind of with it. They got dismantled by Newcastle on the weekend. But yeah, at least they're not like dead and buried, I would say. Just above them is Wolves, of course. Kind of mentioned them a little bit throughout this episode in case you missed it. But yeah, big win over the weekend. Hopefully they can now kind of build on this. I think that kind of good run of games that I had been talking about a couple weeks ago has kind of come to an end here. They did not capitalize on that at all until the very end here against Leicester. So we'll see kind of what their future holds. Now they're kind of coming up on an unpredictable batch of games, I would say. Like I said, with United and Tottenham, they could get something out of those games, but they also might not. So we'll see what happens for Wolves. Just above them, of course, is Leicester and Crystal Palace, Everton, just a couple points separating all of them. Leicester will start off with them first. Of course, 3-0 loss to Wolves. Not good. They don't look good this season, like I kind of just mentioned. I fail to see any real spark or any real reason to bet on Leicester staying up. That's not me condoning betting. That's just a saying. Bet responsibly, please, if you're going to bet. But like I kind of said, I fail to see any oomph to them, I guess you could say. Like, I do like James Justin as a player. I always kind of go back to him. I really do like him as a player, but he's not gonna get them to safety. You know what I mean? Jamie Vardy, like I said, a lot of respect for him. I absolutely adore him, but once again, it's just not there for them. I don't think. I just feel so uninspired looking at the team. But hey, they are still currently outside the relegation zone, so they could stay up. Just above them, of course, is Crystal Palace. Not enjoying a great season. They're missing Elise a lot. Eze hasn't featured a whole ton, kind of in and out with injury, and hasn't been his best self, I would say. And yeah, they're just kind of like Leicester, just in a little bit of a different way, kind of like missing a spark. Whereas with Palace, I can at least see players that can do something for them. They're just not doing it at the moment. Whereas Leicester is kind of like, I just don't see a spark here, period. Like, at least with Palace, is like, yeah, there's positives I think you can hang your hat on, but that's just my opinion. Then just above them is Everton, who now 2 draws against Aresnal and Chelsea in a row, showing some hope, some signs of life, I would say. Sean Dyche, if you got Sean Dyche, you got hope, I think. And I absolutely love Sean Dyche, so I'll leave it at that for Everton. Moving into the European race, or places, I guess. Still very close from like 4th all the way to like 10th. Only about 6 points separating that pack there. But we'll look at kind of more so realistic at the moment. You got Manchester City falling out of the top 5. Not looking good, huh, Pep? Then you got Villa really making a push here. As I kind of mentioned, big win against City this weekend, helping them kind of leapfrog Manchester City. Just off of Bournemouth in 5th by goal difference, so they're technically tied on points. They are. Bournemouth, of course, looking very strong. And then you got Forest in 4th. I really love these teams being up here. It's so much fun to see these teams up here. Probably my favorite part of the Prem this season is seeing the teams like this up here. I absolutely love that. I've said it a couple weeks in a row now, and I'll keep saying it, but I absolutely adore it. Then kind of moving into the title race, Arsenal with a big win over Crystal Palace 5-1, keeps them 6 points off Liverpool. Liverpool, of course, still having that game in hand, but they're now 2 points off Chelsea, as Chelsea drop points in that draw to Everton. Not great, I would say, but still early days in this season, and Chelsea's not even in the title race anyways, so, I'm kidding. They are. That's just a joke if you follow Chelsea like I do. But yeah, no, they're both teams, I think, kind of gonna need a lot to go right in terms of Liverpool kind of dropping points, which is possible and could definitely happen, of course. Still a lot of time in the season. But yeah, at this moment in time, I feel like it needs a lot to go right for them to kind of really get back into me feeling like they could feasibly win the league. At the moment, it's kind of just like, yeah, like they could, but it doesn't really feel like proper title challengers. At the moment, like I said, if Liverpool drops some points, these two teams gain some points, we could be a different story. But at the moment, it's just kind of like hopeful, like, yeah, it could happen. It could, but it doesn't feel like legitimate. And then, of course, you do have Liverpool coming off that big win against Tottenham, still that game in hand, as I mentioned, in their back pocket, and 4 points up on Chelsea, 6 points up on Arsenal, still top of the table on Christmas Day, which historically now over the last couple seasons doesn't bode well. Will history repeat itself? I don't know, but yeah, the last few teams that have been top at Christmas have been Arsenal and Liverpool, and City ended up winning the league each of those occasions. So yeah, we'll see if history is going to repeat itself, or it's kind of going to go back to how it used to be, where you were top at Christmas, you're most likely going to win the league. Like I said, over the last couple seasons, hasn't been the case, but maybe this season is the season where it is the case. So we'll have to wait and see. Liverpool, I think, put in a proper, really good performance over the weekend. Like I said at the start of the episode, if they play like that each game over the next bunch of weeks, I think that you could really see a big separation between them and then Chelsea and Arsenal. I really do. If Liverpool really kind of turns it on and keeps it going, it could. It could not be a title race. It could just be we ran away with it. But that is saying that Liverpool kind of keep up this pace like how they did with Tottenham. So we'll have to wait and see. And of course, with all that being said, that does bring to a close this episode of the Maple Footy Podcast. I do hope that you have enjoyed it. If this was your first episode, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you heard enough to make you want to come back for more. If this is your 48th episode, I do hope you enjoyed it and hope that you continue coming back for more. And if it's anywhere in between, I hope you enjoyed, and guess what? I hope you keep coming back for more. So thank you so much if you listened all the way through, if you've been listening, or, if it's your first time. I do very much appreciate it, putting a lot of time into listening to this. So I do thank you. So stick around. Next week I will be dropping, of course, the next installment of the Maple Footy Podcast. And until then, happy holidays, Merry Christmas if you do celebrate. This will be up on Christmas Eve, so I hope you have if you do celebrate, I do hope that you have a great day, hopefully with your family, with your friends, however you celebrate. I hope that's a great time for you. And follow me along everywhere you want. It plays at the start of every episode. You know where to find me. Thank you so much, and until next time, cheers everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at Official Sam Little on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.